All right, we are on and we are recording. So thank you to everybody for joining us this afternoon. Hello, this is Beth Newell. I am with Pre-Launch. We are a channel partner of Epson, so we're excited to produce the series of webinars for you. And today we will be featuring Sean McCracken. He is a Unity developer and a Moverio expert. So before we get started with Sean, I did just want to go ahead and share with you one more time. We keep promoting this, but it's really important. We have the Epson Moverio App Challenge live today, and it actually, the first round will close tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So we just want to make sure all the developers out there are aware of this challenge, and really especially if you're a Unity developer. If you have an existing app that is already on the Unity platform, we are welcoming those applications into this challenge as well. So it doesn't have to be a brand new application. We'd love to have you submit it, and then, utilizing this plugin that you'll learn about today, you can then port your existing app over to the Moverio app marketplace. So again, phase 1 is due tomorrow, so you can just visit this link here, epsonmoverio.challengepost.com, to submit your application, and the winners of the first round will be rewarded $1,000 and a free Moverio BT200. And the whole challenge is divided by 2 categories, consumer and enterprise. So we'll have 4 winners within each category. So a total of 8 winners will be selected from phase 1. Then I do have the bottom noted phase 2, and phase 3 will continue on from there. So definitely check out challengepost.com to learn more about that and get your application in. So at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Sean so that he can take it from here.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Beth. So let's jump in. Actually, let me show you what I had brought up too. So I don't know all of your experience level on development or anything. So I just wanted to go over some kind of best practices, and then I'm going to jump into Unity. So just in case, I'm a Mac developer myself, so I have this link that I'll share afterwards on Twitter on how to actually set up USB debugging for the Moverio and connecting it to ADB. There's a little bit of a process. It's not too difficult. If any of you were Nook developers back in the day, it's very similar to that. And then we'll mainly be talking about this, and this is the Moverio Unity plugin, and it's home on GitHub. And I literally this morning I updated some more stuff, and I had been hearing reports that Unity 4.6 was having issues with my plugin, and I was happy to find out that it was actually not my code. It was actually Unity that was having the problem, and they have luckily released a patch. So if you go, I'll give you guys all these links later, but there's a patch 4.6.1p2 that if you download that fixes all of the Android issues that were plaguing devices like the Moverio and other devices as well. So yeah, that should take care of that. And I was happy to see that my plugin also works on, so it works all the way through 4.5 and 4.6.1, but only with that patch. So let's jump into, let me switch to Unity now, and I'll show you this. So I have it brilliantly named the Moverio Unity plugin. So sorry about that. But so it's pretty easy to get it set up. Let me go over these folders. So the plugins folder is kind of like, you always need that when you're using plugins for Android. And unfortunately, I did have to grab hold of the manifest. So you will have to make changes to the manifest that I give to you. Right about here, and the package name, just change the package name to your app. And these are both of the libraries. And so I would also, so the plugin is housed two different places. It's on GitHub, where it's where you can download it easily, and it's also on the Asset Store, the Unity Asset Store. The Unity Asset Store version is a bit older than the one that's on GitHub. The GitHub one now includes head tracking as well. So let's just jump into the actual plugin really fast. So I opened up the scenes, and there's just one little Moverio tutorial scene. And thank you, Ryan, for tweeting to me that you see me. That really helps. So, okay, so let me see. So let's open up all this. And I always, with Unity, everybody kind of has their own way of doing stuff. But for scripts, especially like controller scripts, I like to put them on prefabs and then kind of nest those prefabs into another prefab that says controllers, just so that's kind of easy to find everything. So let's look at the Moverio controller first. And that is just in your prefabs right there. And there's a Moverio camera rig and a Moverio controller. Let's go over the camera rig really fast. You don't really need to change anything on the camera rig. I actually suggest that you don't for testing. But there's even, you can change the pupillary distance, this sort of stuff, and change how far apart the cameras are. I tried to set up the cameras in a way that's kind of universal. You can use this rig also for Google Cardboard. So whatever, and I don't know, I haven't been able to play with the Samsung Gear VR yet, but I'm assuming that it would kind of work. But yeah, I'm trying to, make a AR, VR sort of toolkit for you guys that will make it easy for developing on Moverio and with like limited porting for other platforms. So yeah, so the camera rig has within it a 3D camera rig, which are the two cameras, one for each eye, stereoscopic, and then a 2D camera, which is, just your one camera. So the Moverio controller is pretty nice. You just drag and drop it in, and you already have the ability to like change the brightness of the actual display in the Moverio. The number is 0 to 20. It's an int, and yeah, so 0 is off, 20 is brightest. Pretty self-explanatory. Then you can toggle between a 2D and 3D display to start out the actual scene. And then you can also, just by toggling here, you can toggle between the head tracking sensor and the hand controller sensor, basically the gyroscopes. So let's talk about that really fast. You have a gyroscope in the glasses, and you have a gyroscope in the hand controller. Unfortunately, we can't use both at once, which I wish we could, because I would make a badass lightsaber game with it, but whatever. So just because Android only really has hooks for one gyroscope at a time. So, everybody that's probably listening right now will probably immediately go to head tracking at first, but I really do say to try out the hand controller because, like, let's say you want to port a game over that you've already been working on that was made for just mobile devices, and you are using mainly touch as an input and maybe some like swipe gestures. So let's talk about how well that ports over to Moverio. Moverio's hand controller is interesting. I guess that would be the politically correct term for it. I think that it is very much needed. After being a glass explorer, I was needing just like a button or anything. And what's nice about this is that this is basically a trackpad, like a mouse pad, and then we of course have the hard buttons that comes with Android. So since we're kind of doing experimental stuff, I say break the UX schema of like Android, and if you need to use a button for like a trigger or something, go for one of the hard buttons or just a tap on here. So let's talk about the tap and how we would be handling that. Usually with in Unity, we deal with the input dot touches and kind of like we loop through the touches if it's multi-touch, and we deal with all of the finger positions from there. What you're able to do that technically, but I wouldn't do that. I would actually use just the mouse input that is the input dot like mouse position or input dot get mouse button down, all of those that are in Unity already, mainly for desktops. I would actually go that route for any of your UI clicks or anything. So they're trying to kind of go with either a mouse or touch, and because they're kind of trying to do two things at once, sometimes the actual touch responses will be sort of slow, or you'll have to like kind of use two fingers. It's kind of difficult. So if you just want one finger and to do gestures and stuff, I would go with the mouse input. The other issue with that is so since it's more of a mouse pad than an actual touch device, you can't just like switch inputs like that. If you're like dragging to the left and you drag the cursor all the way to the left part of the screen, it'll stop going. So it'll stop responding to getting any input for the X position. So if you are trying to do gestures with touch and stuff, think about that, be cognizant about that. One thing that I've been thinking about, if you are trying to port something that's more of a 2D experience, maybe instead of using, you wouldn't need the head tracking anyway, so why don't you use the sensor in this and maybe try doing interesting gestures with the gyroscope. I'm actually creating a gyroscopic kind of gesture library for that exact purpose, and just kind of, a swipe to the left and then maybe a tap. We're in the wild west of UX with all of this, so we kind of have to make it up as we go along. And so yeah, try, it's a fun playground to, experiment with and all of that. And also, so let's keep going about, kind of porting with just button input. If you're using like, GUI textures or something like 2D Toolkit or NGUI or something, they should if you're using NGUI or 2D Toolkit, it should just kind of deal with the input, you know, pretty well, because it's kind of looking for mouse input as well. If you're doing GUI texture and kind of writing your own sort of input controller, I would just do, to handle the click is just, you know, input dot get mouse button down 0 sort of stuff, and check all on that, because that seems to be the most responsive click at the moment. And yeah, so that's, you know, for porting a touch game, it's really not all that much to do to port it. Like, especially if it's already running on like Unity Android and you're already testing it out, it should pretty much work. But yeah, I would just tweak it if it's very UI intensive, or if you're even using kind of virtual buttons. Virtual buttons are kind of difficult on the Moverio, because virtual buttons work really well on a touch screen because you're able to just tap. With the Moverio, you'd actually have to scroll, you know, I mean, just like you know, move the cursor over and then tap, move the cursor over again and tap. So not exactly the best, you know, use case for the Moverio. That's, again, I would kind of go with maybe a gyro-based system, like where you're able to kind of like toggle between the 4 buttons by rotating and then tap, something like that. I hate this term, but I'm going to use it. So, you know, we kind of have to think outside the box for all of this. Luckily, we don't have to think as far out of the box for like something like that has very limited input that I won't mention again. But and dang, like my demo for Sergey must have gone really well. Sorry, that's all I'll talk about. The news that came out today about a certain other wearable device. But so let's go back into the tutorial. And that was actually, you know, that's pretty much the plugin, and, you know, all of the hooks. And why don't we go into the tutorial controller really fast. I'm going to just show you the actual scripting layer. And you guys might be thinking like, okay, so I have access to the screen brightness and, you know, being able to change the sensors, and, you know, that doesn't seem like all that much, but it actually is, because, oh, and also you're able to toggle between 3D and 2D, and it does have the stereoscopic stuff, and it has head tracking. So, you know, with the brightness, I think that there's a lot of things that we should really start experimenting with. And, you know, I invite you guys to really, you know, kick the tires of this. And, you know, I'm very visible, like on Twitter and G+. Please, you know, shout at me if you don't like how I'm doing something. You know, I might shout back, but, you know, I'll definitely take everything under consideration and, you know, add. This is a work in progress, so tell me what you guys are needing, and I'll be more than happy to provide you with stuff. So, but it's pretty simple. You know, like, it's just essentially to, you know, control anything. It's just, you know, Moverio controller dot instance. I made it into a singleton, and then you can kind of see, you know, there's let's find it. There's mute audio, mute display, so you can actually mute the display completely, so it turns off via code. You can mute the audio, of course. We can set the display 3D. Basically, you just send a Boolean whether or not you want it on. Set the display's brightness and set the sensor mode. Sensor mode is you pass in sensor type dot and then sensor hand controller, blah blah blah. So one thing about that, changing the sensor mode, I wouldn't suggest constantly, in the middle of a game or something, switching too much between the hand controller and the head controller, because what happens is when you do that, the gyroscopes kind of have to wake up in each of the controller, whether it be the glasses or the hand controller. And if you have your camera or whatever is connected to the gyroscope, it kind of goes crazy for like a second while it's all initializing. So I suggest, running that in in your start, like kind of your constructor methods, or really design for the gyroscope to be kind of loopy for a second while it's initializing. So that covers pretty much the sensor data. And now, so that's pretty much the Moverio controller. Then what we'll talk about is how do you use this in conjunction with other sort of stuff. And, oh shoot, were you able to even see any of that? Haha, there's the code. I'm sorry, I'm still learning. This is my first one. I'm kind of making it up as I go along. So let's see. Yeah, this is basically the tutorial sequence, and it's pretty easy to type it out. So there's pretty much all of the different calls that I baked in, and why don't we open up the Moverio controller just for fun. So what I'm thinking of, okay, so let's talk about some more best practices that I've found with the Moverio controller, especially with if you are going to be changing, the sensor to the hand controller or changing the brightness. What I built into the plugin is when you exit out of your app, or you just basically hit the home button on the Moverio controller, it will switch the Moverio back to default settings, which I think there's not really documentation on what the default settings are, so I kind of made them up. What I found in my year and a half deving with the Moverios is the kind of head controller is always the one that should be initialized if you're leaving the app, and then I just always go back and set the display all the way up to 20. I changed the brightness from anywhere to 10 to 15. And the reason why I play with the brightness settings a lot is because if you haven't played with the Moverios, black turns to transparent, like looking through sunglasses. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to balance the black and balance the kind of see-throughness. That's not a word, but I just made it up, whatever. For an AR experience, we really need to set up a real overlay system, and I think that you have to kind of balance, getting the black out of their way, but also being able to see what you're trying to, project or whatever is in the game. So yeah, it's kind of, I found that some people think that 10 is actually too dim for some people. You just have to play with it. And also, it would be really nice to have a sensor that kind of does like how intense the light is, the environmental light is. But, soon. I'm trying. I can't get the direction of the light, but I could at least get like the color of the light, and we could change the directional light to the color of the light, like just kind of doing an average of what color is kind of most dominant, and sort of stuff like that to kind of add to the immersive AR experience. I think that we should stop saying AR and VR, and I think we should just say mixed reality at this point, because, we're kind of, I don't really do, I haven't been doing very much that has just been like completely augmented reality. A lot of people do. I've made some games for like Sour Patch Kids and NASA that were completely, AR based, which I still think that the Moverio will handle better than any other head-mounted display. It's just I'm still not the biggest fan of marker-based AR, and I can't get over it. I've been destroyed by my agency past, so yeah, I'm trying to come to terms with that. But I think that that actually brings me on to another thing. Let me go back to Unity. I'm actually figuring this all out pretty nicely. So one thing that you can't do with the Moverio plugin right now is it does not play well with Moverio or Vuforia at the moment. The reason is we're all three of us are changing the manifest and actually extending the Unity player. So what I want to do is I want to talk to both of those teams. I have fixes. I just don't want to include them until I've already asked for permission from Vuforia and Moverio to kind of add some documentation using their stuff. And then you'll be able to, do all sorts of stuff with image marker based AR. And I'm going to, go over some ideas. You don't have to take my ideas, but if you do, please give me a thumbs up or something. So basically, with Moverio and Vuforia, if you're not looking, finding a marker is pretty simple. It's pretty much just drag and drop your kind of image marker prefab, and then you nest your 3D system into that marker. So whenever that marker, is seen in the camera, then it kind of makes all of the 3D stuff wake up and blah, blah, blah. So why don't you take that further, right? So what if, you use my plugin in conjunction with Moverio or Vuforia, and if you're not looking at anything of importance, just mute the whole display, or take it down, like way down, like down to like a 2 or a 3. So then when the image marker is seen, then you can just, you're also able to extend the events. I haven't really worked with Moverio yet. I haven't had time, but I've looked at they have all sorts of awesome goodies included, and I really want to mess with their SLAM. But yeah, there should be a way to just get an event like, okay, this is active, so let's just shoot up the brightness of the Moverio controller. So, you know, some interesting things there. I don't know if head tracking plus marker-based AR is all that useful. You can, of course, you know, kind of use the markers to figure out where you are in 3D space and then kind of, you know, adjust your head tracking to that, you know, because gyroscopes always kind of, they'll drift a bit. Even the best ones do. And the Epson IMU is actually a very nice sensor, much better than other ones I've played with. So, but yeah, so this is really just kind of the controller is, you know, start playing with the Moverio and the new things that the Moverio can only do other than other devices. Like one thing, I also suggest that you check out the games that I have in the apps market. I have a bunch. I have, there's a Moverio version of Terminus, there's a Moverio version of Cloudipus, there's a Moverio version of Cyclops, and there's a Moverio version of, what else? Oh, Sky Temple. So check those out for kind of things that I'm doing. Cyclops is, of course, the like lowest hanging fruit, you know, like look and shoot sort of thing. There's a new thing that I just demoed at CES for Mr. Sergey Brin. Golf clap, sorry. Of course, people have to Facebook me while I'm in the middle of my webinar, whatever. But so the new stuff that's going to be coming soon is I set up a kind of a gesture system for walking. So now what you'll be able to do is essentially with the head tracking, you'll also be able to know if the person is, which direction the person is moving, how fast they're moving, if they're running, if they're walking, if they're like, you know, ducking, and it'll move the camera exactly. So it'll be a pretty nice simulation. It's very close to the holodeck. I'm still working on making it one-to-one. So a little bit on one-to-one AR for the Moverio. To make stuff stick, feel like it's stuck in the actual reality, you have to take your, let's go into the 2D camera. So if you look at what I'm showing in the, so, you know, we have a field of view that's about that big. You know, if you have your field of view in your camera set to kind of the normal 60, that is essentially faking that you're like seeing all of this but through here. So when you do that, there's going to be a bit of distortion. Stuff is going to bend a bit, you know, stuff is going to look a little bit wonky, but you won't really notice because your head's already in motion, so your brain kind of does some like nice like easing on that and kind of deals with some of the craziness. But if you really want to go down to a one-to-one AR experience, you have to take your field of view like all the way down to like, it's actually down to 1, which is kind of crazy. But what I do is I kind of split the difference usually. I haven't in any demos because, you know, I'm still trying to give them a really immersive experience as opposed to just being true to life AR. So I would split the difference like somewhere between like 20 and 30, maybe even going lower to like a 10 if you wanted a real AR experience. The problem there, of course, is if you go all the way down to 1, everything will stick to the real world really, really nicely, but you're going to get super jitter just off of the gyroscope. Everything will just feel, like I'm still working on some easing algorithms to deal with all of that for you guys. So, stay tuned to the GitHub repo and everything for all of that. But yeah, to make it easier for right now is I would just like take the field of view to like 20 or 30. It's still, bigger than it should be, but it's, it's closer. It feels like it's a little bit stickier to real world, but it's only 2015. We're still trying to figure all of this out. So it's all about, this is, in my opinion, the best head-mounted display out there right now. Everybody's like, oh, even better than Oculus. And I say yes for a couple of different reasons. Well, first of all, I've been a mobile dev for the last like 5 years, so Android is kind of my jam. And Oculus, sure, you have a much higher poly budget and all sorts of stuff like that, but you will never, actually, let me take that back. For a long time, you're going to have to, design the experience at this like kind of low level, low barrier to entry point. So like, you have to deal with the people that will get motion sick after a couple of minutes. You have to deal with like, possible, all sorts of stuff. So with the Moverio, even if your frame rate isn't like 60 frames per second, that's fine. Sure, it'll be I've never really had it jerky per se, but I get a good, if I'm able to optimize, which I'm never able to do because I don't have time, but it's usually around 24 frames per second, which isn't optimal. I would really like to go for 30, but it's still, your brain deals with it much better than with other devices. I haven't really seen too many people get sick from these, unless if they did get sick, it was more because of the pupillary distance being at some crazy number that we just can't support. But, it's really an interesting time to be in this space. We're kind of the trailblazers, and, at this point, we're just kind of limited by our own imagination, because the programming is the easy part at this point. It's more figuring out the user experience and, kind of different inputs, right? Like, it's funny because we just got our touch devices 7 years ago. Actually 8 years ago now, but seems like a lot longer. So we've already been trained on that. So now we have to be trained on different sort of gesture systems, and we have to make them up as we go along. And another thing that I want to kind of go over, just for like, if you wanted to design a new game or a new experience for Moverio, please, like with the UI, don't go so 2D with everything. The awesome thing about having a head-mounted display is like being able to like kind of have the world as your canvas. So use that. Like have environmental 3D UI systems. Like have them float around your head. Have them like come up. Like. I started out as a Flash developer, And yeah, I know, boo Flash. But one thing that I kind of loved about the old Flash community was that you know, we did whatever. You know, we kind of weren't limited by the programming. It was more like we were kind of limited by CPU power and blah, 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 and the Flash plugin itself. So, you know, we came up with all these crazy experiences. And I feel like that's kind of been lacking in the wearable world, like especially the XE version of Android, which was people call it Glass OS, I guess. But I just felt like it was too two-dimensional, too flat. You know, the sky's the limit with these things. So, you know, I say instead of relying more on touch, I say rely more on raycasting. You know, raycasting like where you're looking, raycasting buttons, you know, like, or even raycasting where you're tapping. Oh, and there's my dogs. Sorry about that. I think my boys must be home. So, but so it's 4:43 my time. I don't know what time it is your time. Maybe we should take some questions. Are there any questions? You can write them. Let me see. Would it be possible to get the recording from developing for the Moverio using the Metaio SDK? Let me think.
Sean, I think
Yeah.
we can get that to this individual, and we'll also send it to everyone that attended this. So that's just a former
Okay, cool.
webinar.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Okay. And which example has the walking? Nothing in this. It's my kind of top secret APK. It's the one that I actually got to have Sergey play with. Thank you, Jason, for the awesome talk. Frame rate for Unity and Moverio. You know, it's kind of, Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear. I can hear you.
Okay, sweet. It said, you may be not, no one can hear you. So, good. So Jason, the frame rate for Unity and the Moverio, it really just depends on how optimal you make the scenes. It's more like, you know, you have poly budgets. We're also running kind of on this. This is the consumer kind of dev kit. So we have a slightly slower chipset, but I've been able to get up to, you know, 30 to 45 frames per second, depending on the scene, of course. Hee hee. Okay. But yeah, any other questions or concerns? Is there any noticeable vertigo while walking with the Moverio, and what can a dev do to make sure the user doesn't fall over while walking? Nice question, Ryan. So, no, actually. The hardest, there's no real vertigo that happens. It's more like, so, you know, I'm not going to lie, the Moverio is kind of a big piece of gear, right? And it's hard to, that was kind of what I was talking about with the balancing of the brightness of the display. So, you know, we have to kind of toggle it so that your brain is able to look through the display and not kind of be overloaded by the display and be able to see what's behind it as well. You can see through it. It's what I found though is my brain can only really focus on one or the other. But I'm using my peripheral vision. You're always using your peripheral vision, which is kind of your saving grace for this. So you can actually get away with more virtual experiences. With the walking demo that I showed, there are two rooms. There's a room that is just more of a virtual reality experience where it's just you're in this like 3D modeled room and you see the mountains and you're able to see through windows. And I was thinking of that as more of a virtual classroom sort of setting, or something like the Oasis from Ready Player One or something. So you're able to walk through that room, but you're able to be completely cognizant of your surroundings at the same time. It's hard to explain. You kind of just have to experience it for yourself. And I will be releasing, so the walking demo is called Maelstrom, and Maelstrom will be on the apps market as soon as I have time to upload it. But yeah, then you could kind of deal with that and see how you might be able to apply those same sort of you know, practices in your game. Of course, I'm still thinking that, you know, even though I have this walking system and you can like figure out like kind of where you are in space, you're still going to have to calibrate to something in the real world to like really know where you are. So I'm still thinking that that would probably, you would create a waypoint system, either of like pre-designed areas for them to kind of like press a button and say like, I'm in parking garage level, you know, U1 or whatever. Or you can use AR markers for that. And also what I'm hoping to do is use maybe something in conjunction with like Matayo's SLAM detection, so that I could use SLAM to kind of reposition you in the world as well. So, you know, so many possibilities. It's really, we're just limited by our imaginations at this point. Are there any other questions? Oh, there they are. Video playback issues. Not really. Not that I've seen. I made a video, I made a YouTube video player for the Moverio, and it seems to play video fine. There's also Vuforia has, I don't know if Mateo has this, but Vuforia has a kind of this 3D video system that you can just drag and drop into the scene, and then you can position, you know, 3D video, well, not 3D video, let's say video on a plane in your 3D world, if that makes sense. I would like to see an AR example with the different field of view preferences. I don't have a way to really. I'll have to make a video of that for you, because the one problem with the Moverio is that it's very difficult to demo. It's a very personal experience. So what I'll do is, I do have, Epson provided me a video camera rig, so I will probably next week sometime, because this week is kind of crazy for me. Next week I will make a video showing the different fields of view and showing how well it sticks in using head tracking. So that seems like that's pretty much it for the questions. Anybody else got any more questions? And if not, I think I'm going to call it a day. So, Beth, shall we call it a day?
Yep, I think that's great. If anyone else has any more questions, you can certainly email them to support@prelaunch.com. This webinar was recorded and it will go out to everyone that registered. So if anyone joined late, don't worry, you will get the recording. And that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for attending, and thank you, Sean. Great job.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much, guys, for showing up. So have a good one. And, of course, follow me on Twitter, or my email is also in the GitHub account. The GitHub is just, let me show you. Do I still have the screen? I don't think so. Whoops. But here, I'll just write it in here. So, sent to all. I just sent that to the last answer to the questions, and so yeah, check out the GitHub, and please email me or hit me up on Twitter with any questions. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.